Ken Dashow, Breakfast with the Beatles here at Q1043. For anybody who's ever seen the pictures of the rooftop concert on Savile Row, and you look around and there's a man in a white coat trying to stay warm, that is my guest, Ken Mansfield. Ken, welcome to Q.
It's good to be here, and I'm cold again. I'm in New York.
Ken's written a great book. I wonder where you got this title, The White Book.
Yeah, how about that?
Great idea. And for Beatle geeks such as myself and everyone listening, pictures we haven't seen before. It's actually the only thing you have to say for the crazed beatards as we are. Pictures we haven't seen before. We're done. We're in. Whatever you want to charge for.
Stories you've never heard.
And stories we've never heard. Do you mind starting there? Going back to the rooftop, what was it, January 30th, 1969?
Yeah, I would. Actually, what we're going to do, we're starting on top of the roof, but we're also starting on top of, I think, my music career, my entertainment career is being on the roof. I don't think anything could ever match that. Even in my personal life, it's one of the highest points in my life. But it was a special time. We, you know how tumultuous that time was and all the things that were going on.
It had to be so stressful.
It was amazing how stressful it was. And the reason we ended up on the roof is we needed footage for Let It Be. We needed live concert footage. We tried a thing of booking them into a club in Germany under the name Ricky and the Red Streaks. The idea being, okay, we'll just say, here's this hot new English band. People come in and out walk the Beatles, and we'll have the footage. But you couldn't keep the secret. So before we could get there, everybody knew, and so it was a mess. So we're down to the wire, and so we go, let's go up on the roof, shut the doors downstairs. Where, nobody will bother us. We'll just be up there. And I went up to the dressing room, and I walk in. It's the strangest thing, man, is because it was like they were a nervous band getting ready for an audition or a concert. They're going over things. Anyway, concert time's 1 o'clock. And it was like 1 o'clock, they're out the door and on to do their show. And it started, we locked the door upstairs, and then something magic happened. Because all of a sudden, there's like just a dozen of us up there maybe, and we realized, wait a minute, something's different here. Something's happening. And we realized none of us knew what it was, like this is the last time or, they're going to break up after this. I was standing like a few feet away from the Beatles, and the minute they started playing, all that tension, all the things that were going down, you could see it went away, and that they were the band that they always meant to be, that they'd always had been.
Everyone says that. Jeff Emmerich, as we had talked earlier in his book, talks about the tension, but once the music begins, everything fades away, and the magic is called up and just bubbles to the surface.
And I think, underlying, they knew, we all knew something, but we weren't sure what we knew. But I think when they started playing, maybe somewhere in their psyche, they knew might be the last time or something. You listen to the raw tapes, which I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
We're on top of a roof 6 stories up, freezing cold, January 30th, in London. And listen to how good they played that day. It's pretty amazing when you listen to the raw. They were a great band.
If it was ever about the haircuts or the suits, it would have lasted a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, Ringo said that to me once. This was in the 90s.
Yeah.
He said, the reason the Beatles were so successful is just we were a good band.
Forget having the singles 1 through 5 on the pop chart. It just can't happen again.
That's right.
It could never.
It's never going to happen again.
Right.
No, society's not going to be that position. The times aren't. And one thing that I really honestly believe is that until Ringo came in the band, the Beatles weren't the Beatles. Because I think he was like that extra little thing you put in the recipe, that extra ingredient. There was a chemistry. He's what's made the Beatles whole. Do you understand what I'm saying when I
do,
say
and
that?
it's the hardest thing to figure, because Pete was a really good drummer.
Oh, absolutely. He was better looking.
Yeah, he was handsome. The girls loved Billy J. Kramer and friends.
He was. John didn't like how good looking he was.
Billy J. Kramer always said that the girls in the cavern were screaming for Pete.
Well, they were. And I understand there was a little jealousy in the group because of that.
Ken Mansfield is our guest, the author of The White Book. Ken, when did you come into the movie, as George used to call it?
I was district promotion manager for Capitol Records at the time. I'd been in the music business exactly 8 months. I had graduated from college. I was in a band, and we traveled around. But I was working a day job in the space industry in San Diego. And while I was touring, though, with my band, we'd tour on weekends, I met a guy from Capitol, and he one day said, did you ever think about going to work in the record business? We have a job open. I got a job at Capitol. district promotion manager, which meant I was in charge of all the band activities on the West Coast. So if a band was on tour, I did their TV shows with them and their press conferences. So when the Beatles came, Capitol was a very organized company, and they, like one of the big executives didn't take the Beatles. That was my job. I did the little bands, I did the big bands. They honored that. So now I'm a 20-some-year-old guy. I'm starting to be kind of hip myself, you know, and I thought I was just as hot as they were as far as I was concerned. And I wasn't in awe of them. I didn't quite get it at the time. And I think they sensed that. So they were real comfortable with me because I wasn't all...
You weren't fawning over them.
Just, okay. And it was a job. And there's something about we just hit it off. I think it's because we both had common upbringing. And then I was the California guy. They were really fascinated with us, and I was fascinated with them. They had the next day off. And so they said, well, come on up to the house and spend the day by the pool. And so I hung around the pool, and they wanted to know where Mulholland Drive was, and Ringo wanted to know if I could get him to meet Buck Owens while he was there, because Buck
Sure, of course, the cowboy
and
thing.
they wanted to know all the California things. Where's Grumman's Chinese Theater? And, you know, Gene Vincent was on Capitol in the beginning. He said, can you get me some old Gene Vincent records? And they were like very childlike. But we just hit it off. There was chemistry. They come back in '66. They got playing, hi, Ken. And I go, whoa, you know.
Yeah.
So I worked with them twice, and when they decided to set up Apple, America was the market. That's the market we had to get. I was the only young executive they knew. We had a relationship. They sent for me.
I don't know if maybe you're too close to even answer this question.
Okay.
Was Apple a mistake?
Apple was a bad idea from the beginning, but at the same time, it was conceived with great intentions.
Mm-hmm.
It was way too altruistic. It was way too dreamlike. It's like, we're going to open the doors to all the creative people in the world that can't get, can't get a chance someplace. We're going to give these people, they're not going to have to go through what we went through, and all that. So you open the doors to the world, right? Well, pretty soon the building's full of crazies. It's Hare Krishna's Hells Angels, famous movie actors, and all the deadbeats and crazy people in the world, and it just became madness after a while.
Did you have to kind of play stern father? Were you trying to be an administration guy as well as hold true to their dream of trying to sort this out and say, but look, guys, if you want this to be a record label?
Yeah, nobody's asked me that, and that's really a good question, because that was the position I was in. There's a quote in the book from John Lennon when he sits me down, and I thought this was John's project he was bringing in, the King of Pho record.
Right.
By brute force. And actually, it was George's record, but John and Yoko, for some reason, represented it to me because they wanted it released in America. And they played the record, and I said, John, we can't release this. And, I said, it's just Capitol Records, we can't do that. And John's comment was, well, I thought you were to be for us. I didn't realize you were sent over here to be our personal tight-ass censor. But first of all, Capitol Records policy wouldn't allow it. The FCC wouldn't allow it, and we just couldn't do that record. And so John was saying to me, you're supposed to run our company, but you're also supposed to, help us with our free speech and the things we want to do. So I was in that position a lot,
Walking a high wire constantly.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the Two Virgins album cover or something, There was my next dilemma,
They never made it easy on the people around them, that's for sure.
Well, then also, think about when you say about Apple, let's you and I can create this giant company. It's 5 divisions, well-funded, well-financed, but we're going to have 4 equal bosses.
Can't happen.
Yeah,
it just can't happen.
Yeah. Present that to Wall Street for a way to sell the company. I don't care. So you had that to deal with, because one could tell you something one day and then the other could tell you, and you had to do what they both said, even if they were different.
So it was impossible. It was set up to fail, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Another tough question, I think. If Brian had lived, would the late 60s have played out differently? Could he have controlled them more and given them a singular focus the way he did in the early days? Or do you think it just had a spiral off?
But my personal opinion is I don't think Brian could have controlled it. I think Brian would have been more of a person out of respect and honor and their loyalties. I think Brian would have been a part, but I don't think he would have been able to stop that runaway train.